The woman was opening the mirror when a masked butcher suddenly appeared. But the woman doesn't notice him. She even puts on fiery red lipstick. Meanwhile, the killer has already crept up right behind her. Seeing the bloody footprints all over the floor, the woman gasped, "Is this Harry?" She fearfully calls out to her boyfriend, but no one replies. The woman quickly closes the open door. The fallen body is none other than her boyfriend, Harry. However, the woman still hasn't noticed. The killer behind her has already silently crept closer. She tries to call the police, but despairingly discovers the phone line has already been cut. The killer stabs the woman in the chest multiple times, but after the killer removes their stalking mask, they are surprised to find the woman isn't completely dead yet. An accomplice watches from the side. Suddenly a hand reaches in. From their expression, it's clear this person is indeed another accomplice. The woman is still struggling desperately, but then a third person appears in the shot. It turns out to be the director, filming a scene. Just then, the set suddenly loses power. The real horror is about to unfold. The crew decides to call it a day early. However, Billy, the lead actress, realized she had forgotten her props. Little did she know, her nightmare was about to begin. Since she was mute, she gestured a few times to Karen, and then returned to the set. But as Billy prepared to leave, she discovered she was locked inside. Even stranger, there were 3 people filming a private movie on the set. Billy planned to ask them to open the door once they finished filming, but suddenly Arkady began violently beating the female actress. This was followed by a torrent of vile expletives. Arkady then pulled out a real knife. The actress's face revealed an instinctive terror of death. At the same moment, she spotted Billy in the corner. Then, the most horrifying thing occurred. The blade plunged in, and blood gushed forth. Billy's mind went completely blank. Fear, like an icy hand, clutched at her heart. A loud bang echoed like thunder through the silent set. Billy's last shred of reason screamed at her to run. A witness unable to cry for help, 2 cold-blooded devils, and a textbook cat-and-mouse game was about to unfold. Billy used her familiarity with the set to hide, but Lyosha, the cinematographer, had already begun searching the rooms one by one.
Hello?
Clearly, he was certain someone was hiding here.
Is anyone there? Can explain.
She spotted the emergency exit sign. That was her only hope. The opportunity was fleeting. She timed it perfectly, waiting for the instant the killer entered the room and grabbed the key to the emergency exit.
Hello?
Lyosha noticed bloodstains on the fire alarm box. He concluded someone had witnessed the murder, so he immediately entered the adjacent room to search and saw shoes beneath the curtains. By then, Billy had already escaped through another door, and outside was the same corridor from before. The other killer came charging up the stairs like a tiger. Billy was instantly cornered. She had no choice but to hide behind a door on the side of the staircase.
Yes?
But hiding here, she would soon be caught. The clever Billy looked towards the adjacent elevator shaft. While the 2 killers were conferring, she held the key in her mouth, stepped on the narrow ledges, and gripped the edge of the steps with both hands. Thus, she perfectly entered their blind spot. As her strength waned and she struggled to adjust her position, Billy clung to the cables with both hands, her body suspended over the dark abyss. But the key to her escape fell to the first floor. Hope instantly turned into despair. An exhausted Billy's body trembled, but her will to survive was tougher than steel cables. Billy was just about to reach the key when she heard the sound of a cleaver chopping meat. turned out, the two killers were disposing of the body, and that key was also brought to the bottom of the elevator shaft. After the two left, Billy had no other choice but to go to the dump to look for the keys. Little did she know, the killers hadn't gone far at all. Realizing something was amiss, Leosha quickly asks the other person to bring a flashlight. Billy took the opportunity to hide under the trash. A female head, vaguely visible through the trash bag, met Billy's gaze. An unseen head, a witness unable to scream, in the abyss of death, shared an eerie gaze. After the killers left, Billy, enduring the stench and fear, picked up the key and climbed down the cable, little by little, back to the first floor. However, as she cautiously hid in the first floor lobby, new despair descended. All the lights in the studio instantly lit up. This sudden turn of events created an atmosphere of extreme silence and palpable dread.
Wait! I explain. Lars! Lars!
The two killers, one above and one below, trapped her in this brightly lit, yet lifeless film set. Billy became a trapped bird with nowhere to escape. She could only sprint towards that emergency exit. The director extensively used shaky, handheld camera work, immersing the audience in the scene. This strong sense of immersion made our hearts race along with the action. Billy fell heavily onto a pile of discarded videotapes, temporarily losing consciousness. Meanwhile, Leosha was walking towards the unconscious Billy, right in the critical moment.
Hello? Is anybody there?
A shout pierced through the darkness.
Come here, quickly!
It was Billy's sister Karen, worried about her. Karen had finally rushed back. Her appearance made Leosha instantly switch into actor mode. What happened? I don't know. She slipped and fell hard, poor Billy. As a member of the film crew, he knew Billy was mute, so he started fabricating a story.
Get the doctor quickly.
You go. I'll stay here with her.
Leosha urged Karen to quickly call an ambulance, and then seize the opportunity to silence her permanently.
Not move. Then she should never walk again if she move. Oh!
Okay. Andy!
Although she couldn't hear the shouts, from her sister's heartbreaking expression, she understood the deadly danger. The bond between relatives sometimes transcends language, becoming a primal instinct.
Andy, go with the janitor and fetch an ambulance.
She didn't leave. Instead, she chose to call the police.
Let go. She's trying to say something. Murder.
However, the arrival of the police unleashed the most suffocating battle of wits in the entire film. The two killers displayed Oscar-worthy acting skills and astonishing psychological composure. They insisted it was just a misunderstanding, that they were shooting a movie, and that Billy was just too immersed in her role, experiencing hallucinations.
If we really want to murder, why make film of it? We're not stupid, really.
И потом разве кто-нибудь звонил в полицию, когда объясните все время?
Guys, English, please.
Just then Billy noticed the other killer stealthily going to grab a weapon. Billy frantically warned her sister Karen, but it was already too late.
Murder weapon. Where?
Blood splattered everywhere, and the scene was horrifying. Yet Andy was miraculously unscathed. It turned out that to prove his innocence, Leosha had even staged a charade.
I'm fine.
Видишь?
He only used a cleverly designed prop knife and fake blood to successfully cover up the truth Billy had revealed. The police officers were fooled by the realistic special effects. They were more willing to believe it was just a prank, rather than a tricky murder case. Billy desperately gestured to tell the police the body was in the elevator shaft. But when the police went down to check, at the bottom of the shaft, there was nothing but a few sheets, stained with ketchup. Nothing at all. Both police officers laughed, and the investigation was hastily concluded. However, they all overlooked one detail. The old security guard Karen had called to open the door, and his dog. As he was locking up, the security guard looked towards the inexplicably lit incinerator. Inside, to his horror, was a recognizable human skull. He desperately touched the corpse of his beloved dog. It seemed the truth would go up in flames tonight. If nothing intervened, Billy would meet an unfortunate end tonight. Meanwhile, a mysterious national security agent, Larson, suddenly appeared at the police station. He was investigating a transnational crime organization called the Reaper. This organization specialized in producing and selling real snuff films. Everything Billy described perfectly matched his investigation. He knew that Billy, the sole living witness, was in extreme danger. Back at her apartment, Billy was utterly drained, unaware that the shadow of death, like a relentless predator, had followed her home. The doorbell rang. Billy didn't let her guard down. She cautiously put on the security chain. It was Arkady. He had tracked her down. Then pliers snapped the security chain. Billy used all her strength to hold the door shut, and stomped hard on his foot. Billy temporarily repelled the attacker, but what followed was the terrifying sound of a power drill, the terrifying noise of the lock being broken. They came fully prepared. They were ready to kill and silence her. In her desperation, Billy once again displayed extraordinary intelligence. She remembered the man across the street, her perverted neighbor who always spied on her with binoculars. Billy decisively untied her bathrobe, using her body as a distress signal. Ironically, when she truly needed to be seen, the voyeur looked away. The door was breached. The fight of a trapped animal began. Billy and Arkady fought in the cramped apartment. Vases, knives, everything around them became a weapon. She was forced into the bathroom and locked the door, but the thin wooden door could not withstand the beast's impact. The moment the door was rammed open, Billy launched a fatal counterattack. She timed it perfectly, suddenly pulling open the door, and used the momentum to send Arkady tumbling into the water-filled bathtub. Then she threw in a plugged-in hairdryer. That was brilliant. A truly rare display of high intelligence from a female protagonist. Billy completed her first counterkill. However, before she could even catch her breath, but then the other demon, Lyosha, blocked her path.
Where does this get?
She held a knife to Billy, demanding to know the whereabouts of another tape. Confused, Billy wrote, "What tape are you talking about?"
I know you have!
It turned out that during Billy's first escape, among the props she accidentally knocked over, was a tape containing the secrets of the Reaper's organization. National Security Agent Larson descended like an angel, rescuing Billy. Larson told Billy her situation was extremely dangerous, and she had to come with his immediately. Just as they were entering the elevator, the first floor also lit up.
They're coming. We are in great danger.
They quickly exited the elevator mid-floor and witnessed two mysterious figures heading upstairs. The agent took Billy back to the car, but they had already been discovered by the Reaper's organization downstairs.
It's not over yet.
In the car, Larson brought up the subject of the tape. It was her crucial evidence for capturing the Reaper's organization. The agent hoped Billy could reveal where the tape was.
Right.
Just as she was about to write down the tape's location, the agent's walkie-talkie crackled with Russian voices. But Billy was American. She couldn't understand what the other person was saying at all. That's when she noticed they were passing the police station, but the car didn't stop.
Quick ride. You know, I work undercover. Reaper thinks I work for him. Trust me. Trust me.
The explanation sounded plausible, but it made Billy's heart sink. After experiencing a series of lies, Billy no longer trusted anyone easily at this point. She handcuffed the agent to the steering wheel and then got out of the car to escape. However, the Reaper's informant quickly rushed towards Billy with a gun. At the critical moment, Larson drove out, hitting the assassin and saving Billy once again.
Get in!
This time, Larson's actions seemed to prove his innocence. Billy finally chose to trust his. Based on Billy's previous recollections, they returned to the film studio, the starting point of her nightmare.
Don't look now, but our friends are still here.
Meanwhile, Karen, Billy's worried older sister, and Andy, her brother-in-law, finally arrived at Billy's apartment. But seeing the apartment in complete disarray, they immediately panicked. They called the police. Just as Andy was calling the police, the killer Leosha appeared behind them.
Someone's dead in the bar! Oh my God!
The two quickly hid in the bedroom. Leosha, at his wit's end with his frantic pair, simply sat down in the living room and lit a cigarette. Meanwhile, downstairs, their Russian neighbor was already fuming. Can a person get some sleep in the middle of the night? Little did they know, the two killers from upstairs had returned. They first killed Leosha, then threatened Karen and Andy to reveal the tape's location. In that critical moment, Karen suddenly pulled out the rug, causing one of the killer's guns to misfire, killing his accomplice on the spot. It has to be said, the women in this film are truly incredible. Their combat prowess is off the charts. Andy was completely stunned. There was no way the two of them could explain this scene.
It's not what you think.
The problem was, they didn't speak Russian. Who would believe them now?
We need help! I'll kill you. This is not even hard. We're not gonna...
The terrified neighbor, still in his Superman pajamas, slinking away. Karen and Andy, having narrowly escaped death, also learned from the killer's walkie-talkie the location of the film studio. They immediately rushed there. Billy and Larson found the tape in the dark. But the moment they got their hands on the tape, another killer appeared. The killer didn't attack them. Instead, he threw the tape to Larson.
You helped us a lot, Billy. Thank you.
The Reaper wants to meet the woman. He wants you to do it.
You know why we call him the Reaper? You see his face, you die.
Was Larson truly an undercover agent for the police, or an informant planted by the Reaper within the force? This ultimate suspense made Billy's newly formed trust instantly crumble. Larson slowly raised her gun, aiming it directly at Billy. He seemed to prove herself a good person once again. Outside the studio, the gang leader, the Reaper, was leading a large group of his men, coldly observing everything. He wanted to witness it firsthand. This sole witness died right before his eyes. Meanwhile, Karen and Andy also arrived. They peeked out. The two were instantly terrified. The two secretly climbed over the wall and entered, only to see Larson pointing a gun at Billy. They immediately shouted,
Run, Billy, run! Run! Get out there!
After catching a glimpse of Billy's true face, the Reaper ordered Larson to act. It was only after seeing the Reaper's face that Billy suddenly understood and turned to look. Billy fell to the ground. Her back was covered in blood, and she was completely motionless. Seeing Billy seemingly dead, the Reaper, satisfied, left with his men. Karen rushed forward and tackled Larson to the ground, beating him furiously. However, just then, something miraculous happened. The supposedly dead Billy slowly opened her eyes. Billy pulls open her clothes, revealing the blood bags and props hidden underneath. However, just when everyone thought the dust had settled, Larson suddenly remembered an overlooked detail.
Why the Reaper didn't take the diskette off me?
Who? Whoops. Shit. I'm sorry.
Big cowboy.
As Larson was dragging the subdued killer into the car, Billy suddenly realized something. She saw the killer's terrified eyes.
Expression. The car?
So she frantically gestured, and Andy understood what she meant.
Get out of the car! Get out of the car!
Larson leapt out of the car the moment it exploded. It turned out that the Reaper never intended to leave any survivors from the start, including his own henchman. Silent Witness is a thriller masterpiece from 30 years ago, simply because it possesses a breathtaking pace and numerous twists and turns. More importantly, director Anthony Waller used his masterful audiovisual language to construct an ingenious film within a film structure, where truth and falsehood form a perfect closed loop. The lead actress, Billy, is one of the most unique scream queens in film history. She cannot scream. This instead made her abandon useless emotional outbursts, transforming all her energy into calm observation, meticulous thinking, and decisive action. Her silence instead became the most powerful testimony. Alright, that's all for today's movie recap. I am Movie Briefs.